Hi, I'm GM Matthew Sadler.
And I'm WIM Natasha Regan. And welcome to this video on Game Changer, on AlphaZero's games. And we're doing a new series of videos. We're celebrating winning the English Chess Federation Book of the Year for Game Changer. In this video, we're going to show a game in the Queen's Indian, and in it white does an early pawn sacrifice. This idea has been seen before. It was seen in the Karpov and Kasparov match. And actually in this game, it's Stockfish that plays a novelty for black with 15 rook e8. AlphaZero manages to come up with an interesting strategy against it, involving exchanging the queens into an endgame, and in that endgame, white's pieces are far the more active, and AlphaZero uses this to convert to the win.
Fantastic. Let's take a look at it. Right, let's have a look at this game. It's quite a beautiful one, and I was really impressed by the way that AlphaZero approached the converting process of its advantage. Was very unusual.
The game started with knight f3 and knight f6, and these were moves from t6, so these were forced moves, although AlphaZero likes to play this way anyway.
Exactly, yes. So so d4, e6, c4, b6, g3. We go into one of AlphaZero's favourite openings against the Queen's Indian, g3. Solid. It's sort of the fianchetto protects the king, but there are an awful lot of sharp variations in that, and actually AlphaZero really likes these. So this is the classical main line. And here AlphaZero plays a typical pawn sacrifice, only at a very early stage and in quite an unusual way. I only found 5 over the board games that took this exact move order, but it does transpose to standard theory anyway later. So this move d5.
It just goes to show how much AlphaZero likes to sacrifice its pawns.
Yeah, I think it just decided, it saw the chance, so decided straight away, let's do it before black gets the opportunity to block something. So e takes d5, knight d4. So for the pawn sacrifice, what's the idea? Well, the pawn on d5 is pinned to the bishop on b7. So black's got to do something about that, and well, if black doesn't take any action, then white's just going to play the knight to c3 and then take the pawn back on d5 with a great space advantage and a block to the bishop on b7. So what black typically does is play this move c6, which and after c takes d5, then knight takes d5. White doesn't really want to play bishop takes d5. It would double up the pawns, but also give away the light squared bishop and make these kingside light squares a little bit weak. So actually in this way black manages to win the pawn, the sacrifice pawn. However, what you notice is that this bishop on b7 is rather passive behind the pawn on c6. And with the pressure of the white bishop along the diagonal, it's not going to be easy for black to play c6 to c5. So
also that queenside knight isn't getting out to somewhere useful very fast.
No, it's also difficult for black to develop the queenside knight. So I mean, you see this a lot actually in AlphaZero Stockfish games that the queenside pieces often have difficulties developing. And AlphaZero really loves these types of pawn sacrifices where it just puts obstacles in the way, to development. We've seen a few examples before. So AlphaZero e4, knight c7, knight f5. Again, very early without castling. But after castles, we're back into normal territory. And Stockfish plays all the normal moves, and AlphaZero does too. Bishop c8. So we see black here, trying to do something with its light squared bishop actually, and what it's doing there, it's attacking the knight on f5, which means that white is less able to take on d5 with the pawn because the knight would hang. So AlphaZero plays rook c1, the knight develops to a6, not a great square, but it is developed, and protects the knight on c7 as well. And then this move g4. And this has been seen many times before, actually. I mean, obviously neither AlphaZero nor Stockfish knew the theory, so quite incredible they just reproduced this. Yeah, this was the moment I first came across it was in the match Kasparov-Karpov, 1984, the very first match. And this was towards the beginning of the match where Kasparov was still, playing like a very young player, really trying to attack Karpov an awful lot. And Karpov played the move bishop d7, and got a tricky position. I mean, Gary came with e5 and started moving his kingside pawns forward, and it was pretty dangerous. I think both sides had chances before the game was eventually drawn. The most common move, it was played actually a few weeks after the Kasparov-Karpov game, is this idea: takes, and bishop g5 to try and exchange off pieces. White gets a bit of a pawn roller, after the bishop exchanges either for this one or for the knight on c7. You play f4 and e5, but it seems to be sort of decent for black. What Stockfish actually played was something, it's a novelty, in actual fact.
Stockfish played the rook move, rook e8.
Exactly, and this is a very interesting idea, based on an interesting tactic. The idea being that it stops e4 to e5, and after the obvious knight d6, bringing the knight in to a great outpost and attacking the rook on e8, Stockfish's idea was this little intermezzo: bishop e5. If white takes on e8, then bishop takes f4 is very nice for black. I mean, the dark squares are huge, really, and that really compensates very well for the sacrificed exchange. So AlphaZero did something different, went bishop takes e5, rook takes e5, f4, very typical, getting those kingside pawns moving. And, Stockfish found a different way to give up the exchange. So played rook takes d6 here, takes, and queen takes.
This is a very interesting idea by Stockfish. So Stockfish gets 2 pawns for the exchange. And you might think, what would AlphaZero do here? So could be possibilities with an attack. But as we'll see, AlphaZero doesn't actually launch the pawns forward like it often does, and instead does an exchange of queens.
Yeah, I mean, it's, so black's position is very solid here. Because the e4 pawn has been removed, obviously there's no pressure on c6 and d5. I suppose the big problem for black still is, I guess it's part of the point of white's opening, is that, his queenside pieces are, first of all, somewhat undeveloped, and secondly, not on optimal positions. I mean, it will take a while before black can really claim to have his pieces in good spots. On the other hand, super solid, very few, very few obvious target points for white. So interesting to see what how you should approach this. I mean, I was looking at ideas with f5 to f6, for example, which looked vaguely interesting. But AlphaZero does something rather different, rather interesting actually, and very typical. So it starts off with f5, but that's the point of it, really, from AlphaZero's point of view, is to take away this e6 square and block in the light squared bishop. So the bishop develops, goes to b7, a little bit away from the king side, which is a minus point, but it does support the d5 pawn, so c6 to c5 will be an idea eventually. And now queen d2 from AlphaZero, multi-purpose move as well. I mean, this queen could actually also support an assault on the dark squares as well. So Stockfish plays knight e8, and this is the start of the regrouping. In principle, that knight, well, maybe it will come to f6, maybe wants to come to d6 eventually, and then together with a knight on c5, a rook coming to e8, maybe push d5 to d4. You've got some ideas for getting your pieces working.
And if black manages to get all that in, then black's quite active.
Yeah, I mean, it's the sort of position where 2 pawns for the exchange. If your pieces get active, and your central pawns start moving, then it could be very hard to get the rooks active for white. I was expecting g5 here, just to maybe look for a g6 push or an f6 push, and also to keep the knight on e8. But AlphaZero's plan was very nice, really very nice. It played knight e2. So what is the idea of this move? Well, it's actually keeping all the options regarding g5 or f6 in reserve. But this knight is now targeting either f4 when it can move to h5, or d4 when it can attack c6. And knight on c3 wasn't doing a great deal. On e2, it's rather active, and you sort of see the power of this idea. If black plays a natural idea like knight c5. And here white's got an idea like here and then b5. The idea being if c takes b5, I'll just give a little example. We come with knight d4, attacking b5. After a move like, let's have a look at knight c7 first of all. Here white can play f6. And you'll see that the fact that the knight's on d4 means that there's also now a huge square on f5 for the knight. And a variation like knight takes f6 is met by rook takes f6. If queen f6, then the knight on c7 hangs. Gf6, knight f5.
What a good square for the knight. Great
one. Queen h6, knight e6, rook c3. And we're coming with rook h3, and mate will not be far away. So I think, you know, that moving this knight to d4, it just adds a huge amount of power to the white position. I think I had another example with a6, again trying something like f6. And this was a very nice idea. Not forced, this variation, but quite interesting. Queen e5, rook e1. I mean, white's given away a lot of pawns, but obviously a lot of activity. The e7 square now is a very nice entry point, either for knight or for rook. And I think this was the best move, queen c7, when black's still hanging on. Knight e4, which was natural. I can take and go queen d7, attacking the bishop on b7. And then there's just a little tactical idea to spot. Just give you a couple of seconds, or you can pause the video just to try and spot it. It's very nice, actually, very nice. The key point is actually that obviously the black king is somewhat restricted, doesn't have that many squares available, and there's obviously, a knight discovery seems very tempting, but it's not really clear which one. If you try knight h6, I can simply take it, and the queen's sort of X-ray defending the f7 pawn. I'm going to show it now. It's knight e7 check. King f8, and now this very beautiful idea, rook takes f7 check. And if king f7, rook f1 check, then the king hasn't got a move, and unfortunately knight f6 will allow queen c7 because the queen's the defense is overloaded.
That's funny.
So it's a funny little. Funnily enough, we recently took part in a hand and brain competition in Budapest, and for that we had a look together at the Moro Gambit, which is one of Natasha's great loves.
Very fine opening.
A very fine opening, and something I didn't know very much about. And there was a very similar tactic to this one, where a queen was overloaded in that way. So it's funny to see how those things come back. But in any case, you sort of see the power of this maneuver of the knight to d4. It's really capable of being a very strong attacking piece. And the other point, of course, is that if black ever plays a move like f6, then white's knight on d4 or f4 is then threatening to come into e6.
You said you were taking up the Mora anyway.
I might well take up the Mora, yes. No, it's we had great fun looking at it and great fun playing it. We won quite a fine game, actually, I have to say, with it. So no, I've definitely got over my Morophobia, I have to say. So Stockfish played h6, very decent move, trying to make this knight on f6 stable. And AlphaZero played h4, so obviously renewing the threat of g5. But it looks like it's missed something, because after knight f6, g5, Stockfish played knight g4. Threatening mate on h2, and it looks a little bit as if white's misplayed this, but actually this was something that AlphaZero had seen from quite a long way before, and it had come up with the following way of playing, which really impressed me, I have to say. So queen f4, swapping off the queens, and after queen takes f4, not rook takes f4, which you might think would be the move, but knight takes f4. So really making use of this knight redeployment. But hang on, you might say. There's just this move knight e3, which is also what Stockfish played. Rook e1, knight takes f5, and black's picked up another pawn, and also threatening this pawn on h4. You know, what's going on? Well, AlphaZero played the move g6 and had a very high evaluation, very high expected score. It's around here, and in the next few moves that, certainly Stockfish on my machine suddenly starts to drop after having been very confident all the way through.
We've seen this kind of pawn before in other AlphaZero games. If it gets to stay where it is, it's a bit like a thorn pawn, as Kingscrusher would call it.
Exactly.
Where it keeps the king confined right to the back rank.
Yeah, I mean, king safety and restricting the mobility of other pieces. I mean, these are the key tenets of AlphaZero's play, and in particular, it loves using these diagonal pieces, and pawns are of course diagonal pieces. It nails them on the 6th rank, and then that pins the black king to the back rank. And here it's actually a very subtle variant of it. I mean, first of all, White had a rook for knight. I mean, White was the exchange up, so obviously you want to make use of open files. That's what you need. But I mean, Stockfish had chosen a position to sacrifice the exchange quite well, because there's only one open file on the board. But what was the key piece defending entry points on the file, notably e7? It was the black queen. So that's definitely one of the reasons why AlphaZero wanted to exchange off that black queen. Active black piece covering a key entry point. Now you might say, the knight on f5 has taken over that role, defending e7. But the point is that the knight on f5 is completely unstable. This move g6 stops black from playing g7 to g6 himself to support the knight. And this move, bishop h3, is coming in. It's going to drive away the knight from f5. And when that knight moves away from f5, then rook e7 is killing. Giving you a couple of moves. For example, if I went knight h4 in this position, I can go rook e7 here, attacking the bishop on b7 and the pawn on f7, which is just massive. If black plays f takes g6, then knight takes g6, king f7, h5 is really unpleasant. I mean, I'm threatening either bishop h3 or rook f1. And, I mean, black just cannot keep his knight on f5. And once the knight on f5 goes, then the floodgates are open. So what Stockfish did here was play this move, knight c5. Looks very natural. Activates the knight, trying to bring it closer to the king side. And now, AlphaZero knows its thorn pawns because it played this great move, h5. And now, if black takes on g6 with the pawn, h takes g6 is simply stopping the black king from moving. The black king's in a box. Can't get past the e file, can't get to f7, can't get to h7. And of course, bishop h3 is still coming in, driving the knight away from f5. So this was actually how the game went, and AlphaZero finished it off very typically, simply by exchanging off all black's active pieces. That knight on c5 had just become stable. Knight on c5 supported by a pawn on a5, so that b4 couldn't happen. So AlphaZero exchanges it. And reaches the 7th rank. I mean, the plan now is very easy. White wants to exchange to get its both rooks on the 7th rank. So, Stockfish hangs on just a little bit, but now White's preparing rook e3 to e7. So this rook's coming here to e7, followed by rook d7. So now it's general panic stations and giving away pawns to just last a little bit longer. But a few moves later after this, Stockfish resigned because he was losing all his pawns. So I hope you enjoyed that game. I mean, I found it, I'll just move the board back to this key moment. And I mean, I think if there's, one big thing that we've learned from AlphaZero's play, it's the value of mobility above material, the value of restricting the opponent's king, and also this technique of exchanging off the opponent's active pieces and leaving him with passive pieces. And this whole idea here with the knight coming round to e2, and then the exchange of the queens, even at the cost of a pawn, just to make sure that a key black defender was removed, the queen on d6, the rook, AlphaZero's material advantage in the position, rook versus knight, gets the open file, and then just the rest of the position, the rest of the pawn structure set up so that the only black defender on the e-file, the knight on f5 covering e7, is unstable and can be chased away whenever AlphaZero wants. A very fine strategical performance, and yeah, I was really impressed by it. I really love this game. Hope you enjoyed it too. Keep your eyes peeled because we've got quite a few more videos planned. We're going to do maybe a shogi video or two as well for those interested in shogi. We've got a lot more AlphaZero videos planned as well. So keep looking, and if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And if you haven't bought Game Changer yet, do take a look. It's a really great book, and I think the games of AlphaZero are really worth so worth playing through and worth looking at. It's really wonderful chess. Okay, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks for watching.